My fiancée found my old love letters and laughed while reading them aloud. She mocked my handwriting, my words, my feelings. I finished my coffee. Done? I didn't argue. I sent one short text to a contact she never expected. That night, her phone buzzed once, and that's when everything stopped. I'm a 33-year-old man who thought I'd found the person I'd spend my life with. I'm a graphic designer who works mostly from home, and I'd been with my fiancée for 2 years. We got engaged 6 months ago in what I thought was a mutual decision built on love and respect. She works in marketing at a tech startup, ambitious and driven in ways I admired. We lived together in my apartment, a place I'd owned for 5 years, filled with my things, my memories, my life before her. Last Saturday morning started normally enough. I was in the kitchen making coffee, scrolling through work emails on my phone. She was supposed to be getting ready for brunch with her friends, but I heard her rummaging around in my office closet where I keep old boxes of stuff I haven't sorted through in years. "What are you doing?" I called out. "Looking for that photo album you mentioned," she yelled back. "The one from college." I didn't think much of it. She'd asked about my college days the night before, wanted to see pictures. I told her there was an old album somewhere in my office closet, buried under boxes of textbooks and random junk I'd never thrown away. 10 minutes later, she walked into the kitchen with a shoebox I hadn't seen in probably a decade. My stomach dropped when I recognized it. "Found something way better than photos," she said, grinning. She sat down at the kitchen table and opened the box. Inside were letters. Handwritten letters I'd written when I was 19, during my first serious relationship. Letters I'd never sent because we'd broken up before I could give them to her. Letters I'd kept because I was sentimental and stupid and 19. "What are these?" she asked, but she was already pulling one out, unfolding it. "Those are private," I said, walking over. "Can you put them back?" She ignored me, started reading aloud. "Every time I see you, I forget how to breathe properly. Is that normal? Because I'm pretty sure I'm oxygen deprived around you?" She laughed. Not a kind laugh. A mocking one that made my chest tighten. "Oh my God, this is so cringe. Did you actually write this?" "Stop," I said. "Seriously, put them back." She pulled out another one, clearly enjoying herself now. "I know we're young, but I can't imagine loving anyone the way I love you. You're my person. My always." She snorted, actually snorted. "Your person? What are you, a character in a bad romance novel? This is gold." I felt my face getting hot. "I was 19. Can you please stop?" "Look at this handwriting," she said, holding up one of the letters toward the light like she was examining evidence. "It's so messy. And you spelled definitely wrong. Definately. Did you even graduate high school?" "I was writing fast. It's a first draft. I wasn't planning on—" "Your smile makes me believe in magic," she read, barely able to contain her laughter. "Holy shit, you were such a sap. Still are, I guess. No wonder you're always so emotional about everything." I stood there, holding my coffee mug, feeling like I'd been stripped naked in front of strangers. These weren't just old letters. They were pieces of who I'd been. Vulnerable, earnest, believing that words mattered and feelings were worth expressing. They were from a time when I thought being honest about emotions was strength, not weakness. "Are you done?" I asked quietly. "Wait, there's more." She shuffled through the box like she was searching for treasure. "I'm not good with words. Well, that's obvious. But I need you to know that you changed me. Before you, I didn't think I was capable of feeling this much." She looked up at me, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. "Dude, this is painful. This is like reading a teenage diary. Were you always this dramatic?" I set my coffee down. Carefully. Calmly. "Yes, I'm done now. There's like 20 letters here. Come on, I want to read more. This is hilarious." "No." Something in my voice made her look up. The smile faltered slightly. "What's wrong? I'm just teasing. Can't you take a joke? You're mocking me. It's just funny. You have to admit this stuff is over the top. You're my person? Come on. It's how I felt, at 19, about someone I cared about. Yeah, someone who isn't me, she said, her smile fading more now. Should I be worried you still have love letters to an ex? That's kind of weird, don't you think? I forgot they existed until you dug them up. And even if I remembered, they're mine. Private. You had no right to read them, let alone mock them. Oh, come on. Don't be so sensitive. It's not that serious. It is to me. She rolled her eyes. Whatever. If you can't laugh at your younger self, you're going to have a miserable life. You take everything so personally. She put the letters back in the box, but left it on the table. I'm meeting the girls. We'll talk later when you've calmed down. She grabbed her purse and left. The apartment door closed behind her with a soft click. I stood in the kitchen, staring at that shoebox, feeling something shift inside me, something fundamental and irreversible. See, here's the thing she didn't know. Those letters? They weren't just teenage melodrama. They were from a period of my life when I was dealing with my father's terminal illness. My first girlfriend had been there through the worst of it. And those letters were me trying to process grief and love and fear all at once. Writing them was the only way I could make sense of watching my father disappear a little more each day while trying to be strong for my mother and younger sister. I never sent them because my girlfriend broke up with me 2 weeks before my father died, said she couldn't handle the heaviness anymore, that she needed to focus on her own mental health. I didn't blame her then, and I don't blame her now. We were kids dealing with adult pain. The letters stayed in that box because they weren't really about her. They were about me, trying to find solid ground when everything was falling apart. They were about a boy becoming a man in the worst possible way, trying to hold on to something pure and good while death took over his house. They were private not because I was pining for an ex, but because they represented the rawest, most vulnerable version of myself I'd ever been. And my fiancé had just used them as entertainment, treated my teenage grief like it was a comedy sketch. I picked up my phone, scrolled through my contacts, found the one I needed, her older sister, the one she barely spoke to, the one she'd mentioned exactly twice in 2 years, always with tension in her voice, always changing the subject quickly. I'd met her sister once, briefly, at a family gathering my fiancé had reluctantly brought me to. We'd talked for maybe 10 minutes while my fiancé was in another room. She'd seemed nice, grounded, tired of family drama, but not bitter about it. Before she'd left that day, she'd given me her number and said, "If you ever need to know the truth about anything, call me. I mean it. I know how she is." At the time, I thought it was weird, maybe even inappropriate. Now, I understood exactly what she'd meant. I sent a text. "This is your sister's fiancé. We need to talk. It's important." The reply came 30 seconds later. "I've been waiting for this message for 6 months. Coffee tomorrow, 10 a.m. We met at a cafe downtown, one I'd never been to, far enough from our usual spots that we wouldn't run into anyone we knew. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back corner with 2 cups of coffee waiting on the table. "Black, right?" she said as I sat down. "I remember from the party. You're one of those people who actually likes the taste of coffee." "Yeah, thanks. So what finally made you reach out?" She leaned back in her chair, looking tired but not surprised. "Let me guess. She found something personal and used it against you." I told her about the letters, about the mocking, about the feeling that I'd been seeing signs for months but ignoring them, explaining them away, making excuses. She nodded slowly, like I was confirming something she already knew. "The cruelty? Yeah. She did that with my wedding vows," her sister said quietly. "I got married 4 years ago. Small ceremony, very personal. I wrote my own vows, spent weeks on them. They were about my husband's kindness, his patience, the way he made me feel safe. Real things, true things." She paused, stirring her coffee. "She got a copy of the program at the wedding. 2 days later, she posted them on social media with commentary about how basic and uninspired they were. Tagged me. Her friends all piled on, making jokes. One of them said I must have copied them from Pinterest. Another said they were so boring she fell asleep reading them. I felt sick. Jesus, I'm so sorry. I haven't spoken to her since 4 years. She never apologized. When I confronted her, she said I was being oversensitive, that she was just having fun, that if I couldn't take a joke, that was my problem. Said I was making a big deal out of nothing and that I should be flattered she paid enough attention to read them at all. Why are you telling me this? Because you're going to marry someone who thinks vulnerability is weakness. Someone who sees genuine emotion as something to mock. Someone who will take the most private, sacred parts of you and turn them into entertainment for her friends. And I want you to know that before you do. Before you waste years trying to figure out why you never feel safe with her. Is there more? She hesitated, looking down at her coffee. There's always more with her. But that's not my story to tell. What I can tell you is that she has a pattern. She finds people who are kind, who are open, who feel things deeply, and then she slowly dismantles them, makes them feel stupid for caring, for trying, for being human. By the end, they don't even recognize themselves anymore. Why? I've wondered that for years. Talked to my therapist about it. Best I can figure, she's deeply insecure about her own inability to connect with people on that level, so she tears down anyone who can, makes herself feel superior by making others feel small. It's easier than admitting she's empty inside. That's awful. It is, but it's who she is. She slid a piece of paper across the table. That's the name and number of her ex-boyfriend, the one before you. She told you he was crazy, right? Controlling? Unstable? Maybe even abusive? Yeah. Said he had anger issues, that she had to get a restraining order. None of that happened. He's a kindergarten teacher who volunteers at animal shelters on weekends, cries at Disney movies. The restraining order never existed. Call him. Ask him why they really broke up. I took the paper, my hand shaking slightly. Why are you helping me? Because someone should have helped him. Someone should have helped me. And because despite everything, I don't actually hate my sister. I just can't watch her destroy people anymore, without at least trying to warn them. I've been carrying guilt for 4 years about not reaching out to you sooner. When I met you at that party, I saw how you looked at her, how gentle you were, and I knew. I knew she'd eventually do this to you. I'm sorry I didn't say something then. Why didn't you? Because I didn't have proof, just a feeling. And who believes the estranged sister? But now you're here, and that means she's already started. So now I'm telling you. Run. I called the ex that night, after my fiancé texted that she was staying at her friend's place and needed space. He was hesitant at first, but when I explained who I was and what I wanted to know, he opened up. She found my journal, he said, his voice quiet. I kept a journal, had for years since high school. It was therapy for me, you know? A place to process things. She read it without asking, then used things I'd written, private thoughts, fears, insecurities, against me in arguments. Would quote my own words back at me to make me feel pathetic. How long were you together? 3 years. 3 years of slowly being eroded. Took me 2 years after to stop feeling like everything I thought or felt was wrong. I'm in therapy now, still working through it. Did she ever apologize? No. She said I should be grateful she cared enough to want to understand me better. That reading my journal showed how invested she was. That if I had nothing to hide, I shouldn't mind her reading my private thoughts. By the end, she had me believing it was my fault for having boundaries. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry it's happening to you. Because it is happening, even if you don't see the full picture yet. My advice? Get out now. Don't wait like I did. That night, when she came home from her friend's place, I was sitting in the living room with the shoebox of letters on the coffee table. I'd spent the afternoon reading them for the first time in years, crying over the boy I'd been, grieving for my father all over again. "Oh, you're still mad about that?" she said, dropping her purse on the couch. "I told you, it was just jokes. You really need to lighten up. Why did you and your sister stop talking?" Her face changed immediately. The casual mask dropped. "That's none of your business. Why did your ex really leave? I told you he was—" "I talked to him. And to your sister." She went very still, like a predator that's just spotted movement. "You did what?" "I needed context. For the letters. For a lot of things, actually. For all the times you've made me feel crazy for having feelings. You had no right to contact them. You had no right to read my private letters and mock them. But here we are. This is different. Is it? How?" She sat down slowly, calculating. I could see her trying to figure out what they'd told me, how much damage control she needed to do. "What did they tell you?" "The truth, I think. About how you treat people. About patterns I've been ignoring for months because I kept telling myself you were just stressed from work, or tired, or having a bad day. They're lying. They're both bitter and—" "Your sister has a recording," I said, "of her wedding vows, and screenshots of what you posted about them. She showed me." Her face went pale. "She had no right. Your ex kept a record of text messages where you quoted his journal entries back at him during fights. He showed me those too. That's taken out of context. Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop. I'm tired of the gaslighting." "I'm not gaslighting you." "You are. You've been doing it for months. Every time I have a feeling you don't like, you tell me I'm being too sensitive. Every time I set a boundary, you tell me I'm being unreasonable. Every time something hurts, you tell me it's my fault for caring too much." "Fine." Her voice went hard. "You want the truth?" "Yes. I read your stupid letters. Yes, I thought they were ridiculous. Because they were. You were a melodramatic teenager writing cringe poetry to a girl who didn't even appreciate it. It was pathetic then, and it's pathetic that you kept them. You don't get to decide what mattered to me. And you don't get to be so fragile that you can't handle a little teasing. Grow up." It wasn't teasing, it was cruelty. There's a difference, and you know it. She stood up, her jaw tight. "If you're this upset over some old letters, maybe you're not ready to be married. Maybe you're too weak for a real relationship. You're right. I'm not ready. Not to you." The silence was deafening. "What?" I pulled the engagement ring off my finger, set it on the coffee table next to the shoebox. "We're done. Over some letters? Are you insane? Over the fact that you think vulnerability deserves mockery. Over the pattern of treating people's feelings like they're jokes. Over the realization that you're not the person I thought you were. Over the fact that I can't trust you with the softest parts of me. You're overreacting. This is insane. Maybe. But I'd rather overreact than spend the rest of my life wondering when you'll use my words, my feelings, my private thoughts against me. I'd rather be alone than be with someone who makes me feel small. You can't just— We're engaged. My parents already sent out save the dates. We're engaged. Past tense. And you can explain to them why the wedding's off." She grabbed her phone. "You're going to regret this. You're making a huge mistake." "Probably not." She called someone, put it on speaker, probably hoping whoever it was would talk sense into me. I realized it was her mother. "Mom, he's breaking up with me. Over nothing. Over some stupid old letters. Tell him he's being ridiculous." Her mother's voice came through, tired and unsurprised. "Sweetheart, what happened?" "I found some old love letters he wrote to an ex and made a few jokes about them, and now he's—" "You read his private letters?" Her mother interrupted. "They were just sitting there in a box. Did you ask permission?" No, but they were just—" "Did he ask you to stop reading them?" "Yes, but they were so funny Goodbye, sweetheart. I'll call you later." The line went dead. My fiancée stared at her phone in shock. She hung up on me. My own mother hung up on me. Seems like it. This is your fault. You turned her against me. You turned everyone against me. I didn't have to. You did that yourself. She grabbed her things, shoving them into her purse violently. I'm staying at a friend's tonight. When I come back tomorrow, you better have changed your mind. You better have that ring back on your finger and an apology ready. I won't have. We'll see about that. She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. I sat in the quiet apartment, feeling lighter than I had in months, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even know was there. The next day, her mother called me directly. I owe you an apology, she said. I've watched my daughter do this to people for years. I kept hoping she'd grow out of it, that she'd mature, that she'd learn. I'm sorry I didn't warn you. I'm sorry I let you get engaged to her without saying something. It's not your fault. She gets it from her father. He was the same way. Found people's vulnerabilities and exploited them for entertainment. Made people feel stupid for having emotions. I divorced him when she was 12, but the damage was done. She watched him do it to me for years, and then she learned to do it herself. She'll be by tomorrow to get her things. I know. She called me crying last night. Genuine tears, probably the first real emotion I've seen from her in years. I told her if she wanted sympathy, she'd need to start by apologizing to you, her sister, her ex-boyfriend, and everyone else she's hurt. Did she? She hung up on me. Again, my ex-fiancée did come by to get her things. Brought 2 friends as backup, probably expecting a fight. I stayed in my office with the door closed while they packed up her belongings. I could hear her talking to her friends, spinning the story, painting herself as the victim. He's just so oversensitive, she said. Can't take any criticism. Can't laugh at himself. I dodged a bullet, honestly. One of her friends knocked on my office door before they left. For what it's worth, she said quietly when I opened it, I think you made the right call. She showed us the letters last night. They were sweet. She was being cruel. We told her that. She didn't listen. She never does. They left. The apartment was mine again. I spent that evening boxing up everything that reminded me of her, putting it in storage. I kept the letters, though. Put them back in the shoebox, back in the closet. This time I knew exactly where they were. 3 months later, I ran into her sister at a bookstore. We grabbed coffee and she told me my ex had tried to reconcile with her, sent a long email about misunderstandings and moving forward and letting go of the past. Her sister had replied with one line, apologize for the vows first. She never did. 6 months after the breakup, I started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and casual dinners. I met someone who asked about my past, and I told her about the letters. She asked if she could read one. I said no, they're private. She smiled and said, good. That's how it should be. Some things are just yours. That's when I knew I'd learned the lesson I needed to learn. I'm doing better now. Still processing, still healing. I started therapy to work through why I ignored the red flags for so long. My therapist says I have a pattern of making excuses for people who don't deserve them, of seeing potential instead of reality. We're working on it. I also dug out those old letters and actually read them properly for the first time in over a decade. They were melodramatic and messy and earnest. They were also honest in a way I'd forgotten how to be. They were written by a boy who wasn't afraid to feel everything fully, even if it meant risking embarrassment or pain. I'm trying to get back to that version of myself, the one who believed that being vulnerable was brave, that expressing emotion was strength, that words mattered and feelings were worth protecting. The biggest lesson I learned is that the right person doesn't make you feel stupid for caring. They don't weaponize your vulnerability or turn your honesty into entertainment. They don't mock the soft parts of you that took courage to show. And if someone does those things, it doesn't matter how much you love them or how much time you've invested, they're showing you exactly who they are. I believe them now, and I'm grateful for that shoebox of letters, because they reminded me who I am when I'm not trying to be smaller for someone else's comfort.